Well, hello, everybody. Glad to have you along on Mary Wieden and You. A little bit later on, I want to talk about Katrina, and I'd love to know where you all were and what you remember about Katrina. I can't believe it's 20 years ago, but it is. Mm-hmm. But here in the studio, I have the man who, if you see my promo, the man who wears two hats, going to be wearing two hats for a while. And he is Tyree Jones, our sheriff, but he's also going to be JPD chief, because I blew my mind the other day when Joseph Wade announced he's retiring. I was like, what is going on here? And you're doing this, and I think you're the only second person, congratulations, yes, to do this. The first one was Malcolm McMillan did it for Frank Milton when he was mayor. How did this happen, and what are you going to do now? It's not easy.
Well, let me say this. First of all, I would just like to again congratulate Chief Wade on his well-deserved retirement for the job that he did during his tenure as sheriff, and the job that he did during his time with the Jackson Police Department. You know, he stayed within the department. He rose through the ranks all the way from a police recruit to eventually become the chief of the Jackson Police Department. And what he has done in the last couple of years has been very tremendous to be able to get more officers on the streets with the Jackson Police Department, some to dedicate to come back to the department and to decrease violent crime in the city of Jackson. So he should be commended for a job well done.
And I hope he comes on the program. I've asked for next Tuesday. And it surprised me because now he gets to be what he wants to do in the job. I mean, he's done that job, and he's done a good job in 2 years with handicaps, and he doesn't go into those, and that's okay. But we just can figure out what some of that stuff was. And now he's got all of these, but he'll explain all that.
Yeah. And he'll be able to come in and explain a lot of it for himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did this happen? Did you see this coming at all, that you would serve in both capacities?
No, I did not see it coming at all. But I tell you, I have humbly accepted the role, and I am very grateful for the opportunity. But no, I did not see this coming. It went from a meeting to a discussion to a commitment.
Wow.
And if someone thinks this much of you and your leadership, and they ask you to do a job, then you don't tell them no, because again, we're here to serve and we're here to help people, right? And another thing that's very important about that, I made sure that I stress that it would only be temporary.
Temporary, sure.
Right? And I know what the law says, anything under 90 days would eventually have to become an appointment to a confirmation. And I would not be up for a confirmation like I stated. But during my time, I will make sure that I provide good leadership to the city of Jackson and to the police department. Hopefully some of the men and women that are currently with the police department, within the ranks of the police department, will apply for the job also, because there are some great men and women at the police department. There are some great men and women on the command staff that have good leadership abilities and leadership skills. So this will be a very transparent process as Mayor Horn and his administration seeks a new police chief. And, it's probably good that they don't have someone serving as the interim chief that seeks to become the permanent chief.
That is a good idea. The other thing that, I think it's important for the citizens of Hinds County to know that they'll still have their same communications with you, the same protections, and those bad guys out there in Hinds County, in the city of Jackson, needn't think, oh, well, now we can really go. No, they can't.
No. A news reporter asked me the other day, he talked about me operating in both. And like I told him, I'm not going into foreign territory. My office is in the city of Jackson. Hinds County, the city of Jackson is in Hinds County. So we've been operating in the city of Jackson, and we've been working very well alongside the Jackson Police Department.
Yeah, so it's not foreign territory. Like I say, the bad guys, though, needn't think that this is some kind of an opportunity, because it's not.
No, it's not. No. It's not. And I look forward to the men and women of the Jackson Police Department to continue to do the great job that they've been doing, addressing the criminal element, being able to work in partnership with all of the agencies that are within the city of Jackson and, of course, Hinds County, to be able to tackle and eliminate some of the criminal activity that we have seen over a period of time.
How do you plan to? Your days are going to be bifurcated. How do you plan that you'll start up in the morning? I presume that like when you come here, you're working, you're on the phone, you're communicating with your people, whatever that you're doing, and so in addition to your people, now you'll be communicating with the people simultaneously. I would think with the police department as well. So how are you going to do that?
So I have been in communication with some of the command staff at the Jackson Police Department. And, of course, next week my role will increase a little bit more. I look to become more active at that time. As you know, Chief Wade's last day is, I think, next Friday. Yeah. So I have a meeting with the current command staff. And let me stress this also, Mary. I'm not going into the Jackson Police Department to disrupt anything, to make any major or drastic changes. I've been in that position before, where you're serving in a leadership position that's appointed and there is somewhat of uncertainty on who the next leader of that department will be. So I'm not going in to disrupt or make any major changes. I'm there to serve as an administrator between the police department and the citizens of Jackson and to the mayor's office. I understand I do have a dual role. I will have to answer to certain things with the sheriff's office. But again, I have a good staff with the sheriff's office that I trust with the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office as well.
Well, plus you're not going in as a babysitter to the JPD. They need to understand that too. You're not just going to go whatever. You'll do what needs to be done without taking over. You will be taking over, but it's right. They need to understand it's a temporary thing, and you're not going to, like I say, make big changes.
No, and I want them to continue to do what they have been doing, because obviously the work that the men and women of the Jackson Police Department has been positive, and they've been able to work to decrease crime. So I want them to continue doing what they have been doing. I support them. I support their efforts. And again, I'm not there to disrupt or make any major changes.
When the chief came in a couple of weeks ago, I guess, right around the time you were here a couple of weeks ago, he was so happy, and everybody's so very happy about the change in administrations and the changes in feelings about Jackson. It's a palpable thing, and that has got to keep up. And I think that'll be up to you to inspire the troops to recall that. It's like, hey, don't stop now.
That's right.
This is your chance to do what you need to do. With this administration.
That's right. And I was at the state capitol along with the mayor day before yesterday. And to have a mayor sitting in the capitol before one of the committees to talk about the revitalization of Jackson, and that was what I would consider a breath of fresh air for me, not only as a interim police chief, as a sheriff, but as a citizen of Jackson also, to know that we have the support, that we may have lacked somewhat in the past from the state, to be able to help the city of Jackson and to address some of the issues that Jackson is facing. So that was a breath of fresh air for me to witness.
Well, the mayor understands. He knows how it's done. He's been there for a long time, 30 years as a state senator. So Mayor Horn knows exactly how it works, how to ask the right questions, I would presume, and how to make the presentation to get it moving and become a reality, instead of just going, well, we might like to do whatever.
That's right.
He knows what to do.
That's right.
And that's part of this whole fresh air business about Jackson.
That's right.
That I hope people will continue. And that, like I said to you, maybe you or he was the other day. Anyway, one of you is it'll keep up on your level, but also on the part of the use of Mary Wieden and you. All you people out there, you've got to keep it up, because your city's on the brink. But I talked to somebody, by the way, the other day. I've told you, everybody knows I'm from Detroit originally, and that place, but I have said Detroit's 1,000 times bigger, and if they can come back, so can Jackson, Mississippi. Well, I spoke to somebody the other day who spent some time outside in Romulus. It's one of the suburbs. I think it's a downriver suburb. And I said, well, is this all really true? Oh, yeah, very much so. The downtown area especially is going and blowing, which is great because it was just completely dead. Then they've got their sports stuff down there, by the way. They got football and baseball. But I said, what about neighborhoods? Well, a lot of neighborhoods are doing really well. Even Hamtramck, which used to be, it was all Polish people. Now it's run by the Muslim community. However, they've kept some of the Polish there.
Right.
So you can get your Kowalski quality sausage, if you ever heard of that. But I mean, the point is, if they can do it, hey, Jackson, you can do it too.
That's right. That's right. And when you have a flourishing capital city, not only that, but you have a flourishing state also. We want the capital city to flourish. We should
Absolutely.
be the model for the state. We should have others that want to do some of the things and see some of the things that we're doing here in the capital city. So all of that's very important. And again, the conversation and the dialogue that I was able to witness the day before yesterday, I'm very optimistic to see some of what has been in discussion come to fruition.
Yes, that would be great.
It has to start somewhere.
It does. By the way, on another subject, but yet it works. Terrible thing from Wednesday also was the shooting at the Catholic Church in Minneapolis. It's inconceivable. And shooting at children and shooting through stained glass windows, shooting at little kids and hating children, the whole thing with this whack job. I mean, that man is really insane. Have you received requests for additional security at churches and schools, and particularly the Catholic community, since then? I
haven't yet, but I do foresee it coming. But we're always in constant contact with our faith-based organizations, to keep from going too far into detail. But there are several faith-based organizations that have private security that depend on law enforcement to help them with security measurements within their establishments. And my heart goes out to those families. Yes. And just to be quite transparent, an individual that looks to hurt and harm children, there's no place in society for an individual like that. And once they decide to take their own life, there's a place for them too. And that place is not with the Heavenly Father. So
that's true. And the other thing is, and I heard, I think it was Trey Gowdy said this on Fox the other day. My contention is too, even though our church doesn't believe in suicide, my attitude is, if you want to kill yourself, fine, kill yourself, but don't take anybody with you.
Don't take anybody with you.
And look what this guy did. And I blame his mother in large part for this. I mean, a few years ago, he wanted to identify as a woman. He didn't want to have the psychological counseling and the surgeries and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't make you what he thinks it did.
There.
And he's regretting all this. He was regretting all this, blah, blah, blah. He belonged locked up someplace, in a mental institution.
That's right.
And same with that Adam Lanza guy, the Sandy Hook guy. His mother, who he killed, his mother bought him a gun and had him enrolled in a shooting course, for God's sakes.
That's right.
You have to look at the parents. And you as a law enforcement officer must see, what is your advice, by the way, for people who think, there's something odd. You can't throw somebody in a facility just because people think there's something odd. You can't do that. If they haven't committed a crime, you can't do that. But yet they're out there. And
that's right.
I don't know
they're out there, and there are signs, there are precursors. There's evidence sometimes, and if you ignore it and you don't do anything about it, eventually this is what the outcome will be in these very tragic situations. You talk about Sandy Hook. Look at what happened in Pearl back in the 90s. Luke Woodham. He killed his mom and went to school shooting, right? So before he killed his mom, I'm sure that there was something there that had potentially been ignored. And a lot of times that's the way that it is. I have been in conversation and I have seen dialogue with serial killers, people that have been involved in mass killings that are currently in jail, and they talk about what led them to that particular point. And pretty much every time there was something there that had been ignored by someone that could have possibly helped before it got to that particular point.
Well, if somebody out there is listening and they're thinking about, hey, there's somebody down my street or whatever I know about something like that, do your departments now have people on staff that somebody could go to and say, hey, just to talk? You not necessarily, you can't press charges necessarily, but if people out there are worried about somebody, how can you help?
So there are ways, if you contact law enforcement, and sometimes we can assist with getting individuals some mental help also, because there's so many mental health resources that are available before it becomes to that particular point.
Yes, but they can go to their police department. They could go to their sheriff's department, and
right.
At least as far as you're concerned, we don't know. You can't speak for the others, but for you,
and report the behavior.
Yes,
and not only that, they can also be, I would consider maybe flagged or put on the radar by other agencies to be able to monitor their behaviors. And, a lot of it starts online,
Oh,
so
yes.
you have seen some that have actually come to fruition, but there are some that have been thwarted also because the behavior had been reported, and those responsible for monitoring behavior, specifically with like the FBI and other federal agencies, they were able to monitor it so that it did not come to that particular point also.
Well, now let me flip back because we got just a little bit, and I have to let you go because you have two hats to wear. Two hats, and you brought one. You were wearing a third one today. But are you into the budget process at all with City Council and JPD? Talk about that.
Ironically, as we were sitting out there just moments ago, I was in communication with some of the staff over at the police department. They actually have a budget hearing today. I have seen the proposed budget and what it is composed of. So we have a meeting today before the budget hearing where I'll be able to get a little bit more in depth about the upcoming budget process.
And you'll also want to know about the Sheriff's Department budget process. Have you gone through that yet?
Yes,
with
I have.
The supervisors? So
yes, I have completed that. So now we're just waiting on what the final budget will be. But I have gone to the budget hearing and made the presentation and everything.
I think you're going to get more money, more vehicles, more staff.
We asked for it.
Well, it's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, we did ask for it. And of course, I had taken a budget cut last year. But from what I have seen in the proposed budget for this year, there may be somewhat of an increase. But now that's what the proposed budget complied of or whatever, yes.
Okay, well, so thank you, Sheriff Chief. You got to go do the budget hearing for JPD. Well, listen, truly, much luck to you, and I won't be bothering you unless something really coming along because you're going to be busy for a while.
Yeah.
So good luck, and but if you need us, we're here.
Well,
How about
thank you,
that?
and it's always good to be here. And again, if I can ever do anything for you all, let us know. But we appreciate you getting the word out to the people and allowing us to be giving us an opportunity to be transparent with the people also.
Well said. Thank you very much. Tyree Jones. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and I do want to know, by the way, about your recollection of where you might have been 20 years ago and what you know about Hurricane Katrina. Stay with us. So, that was good. Where were you 20 years ago today? We'd love to hear from you, where you were when Katrina was doing terrible, disgusting, awful things to Mississippi, and the networks keep wanting to say that it hit Louisiana. No, the flooding, the wind and all that's what wrecked the levees is what happened there. The Hurricane Katrina came on land, made landfall at Waveland, Mississippi. That was ground zero, Mississippi, but they don't want to, they don't want to admit it. I'm so sick and tired of that stupid attitude about Mississippi. And I'm really tired of it. It's not the Mississippi of 1,000 years ago, Things have changed and grown. But anyway, so where were you? Let us know. 808-888. 888-808-8637. 800. Let me start again.
I better listen because I got to do this tonight. Yeah.
Ooh, well, yeah. 888-808-8637. Yeah, that's right. You got the football.
Yeah.
Oh, and hey, tonight's the debut of
That's right.
Academy right here.
And it's going to be a big game, too. They have Columbia. Columbia is a solid school, public school. Hartfield's breaking in a bunch of new guys, as most people do, but it'll be a team that will have a lot to live up to with the type of success that they've had. I know Coach Craig Bowman is going to be ready to go, and there'll be a huge crowd. So I hope the weather holds out. It looks like it'll
I think
be
so.
okay.
I think we're done with rain now. Hooray for that.
About Jackson North should be okay. South of Jackson,
Right,
the coast in Hattiesburg may get a little wet today and tomorrow. But, that's what football's all about. You play. It doesn't matter what's going on.
Exactly. And besides, you come on out to Rankin County, and I think we're going to promise you some good weather. And the new stadium, I mean, it's the stadium been expanded.
Well, they
this
took
year,
the
right?
old they took the old one down. It was a
completely
cinder block construction similar to how you would build a building with cinder blocks, and it was kind of a pyramidal shaped, and they outgrew it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And over the years decided to expand the stadium, went with more of a metal frame, popped that baby up, and they're already filled it up. So it's a place that's growing a lot. And the MRA, JA, Jackson Prep, St. Joe, all of the larger private schools in and around Jackson have seen a massive growth spurt.
Wow.
And they all compete. They love competing. It's fun to watch the public and private matchups for me.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
and then this time, as you said, I mean, Katrina made ground. This day in history, and think about it, we were starting high school football, college football. Everything's kind of getting going at the same
that's right.
time.
Never thought
so
about
all
that.
these plans and everything that everybody had made and traveling, and then you have this. Oh my God! This great disaster that is catastrophic.
Where were you, by the way?
I was here. I worked for Merrill Lynch here in Jackson.
Oh, you were in Jackson. Oh, okay.
Briefly, I was about to move back to North Mississippi. In a few months, I'd come here to start with Merrill. This is where the home office was in Mississippi, and we had a building downtown at the time. And if I recall, there was we were moving out to the Highland Colony area, but they still had the downtown office, which was right over by the Elite.
Yes.
Beautiful building, and I remember I had not shaved or showered or been able to get do much of anything for about a week because of our power was out. I was out for about 2 weeks.
Where were you living at the time?
Over in Castle Woods area.
Okay, because that was on It is on energy,
right? Well, and I called them a couple times, and they kept saying, "Hey, the power is showing that it's on out there." And as they were able to triage those that had the greatest needs, which were way more pressing than us in the street, we didn't have any damage really. It was wind, as you said, and no real downed anything. So I remember finally about that third call, I said, look, I know that the power is supposed to be on, but this whole street for 10, 12 days has been out, and everybody in the neighborhood is back. They came out that day, and I remember them pulling up, and there's one of the electrical boxes. The things that are in your yard.
Yeah,
I went over and shook it around real good, and the power came back on. So he rewired it after that, but he was like, yeah.
That's the thing to do.
So it was one of those weird events like that. So many strange things happened.
Well, let me tell you, where I have SEPA, Central Electric Power Association, and we were without power for 25 hours. 25 hours. It went out at 4 o'clock that Monday and came back at 5 o'clock the day after. And I almost felt guilty for, poor people in Jackson, don't have anything.
There were so many people that were, that it came right back on. And again, I think we were an anomaly. They did such a great job of getting the power back on. It was just one of those that no one really knew what had happened to that one little street.
Isn't that weird? That was strange. But just needed somebody to kick it.
I felt like I was like, I wouldn't have known which one to go to do it, but I could tell up to the right of me had power, and to the left of me it was almost like about right at our house. So it was like, something's not happening right here.
Well, I remember the day, because I was home that day, and, the trees were just howling, tall trees howling. There was rain, of course, rain and wind, but like I say, the trees, I'm really worried about trees coming down. But I was looking across the way. I knew some people across the way. I was looking at their roof, and I could see my roof from the front by going to the upstairs train room and looking out. I could see the front of the house because the house is shaped like an L. Couldn't see the back of the house. I thought, well, I hope everything's okay there. But I didn't want to go outdoors. I was, just petrified about the whole thing and trying to keep up with stuff as much as I could. I can't remember if cable stayed or not. I don't remember.
I don't think we because the power was out. I did have a long extension cord, and I had one of those boxes that had a 3-prong plug that you could plug into your cigarette lighter in your car. So I basically, when I could get a full tank of gas, I filled it up, and I basically let I had to use the manual pull thing for the garage because, again, didn't have power. So I had to pull that up enough so I could let the exhaust out of the garage as I let the truck run so I could watch something on TV or cook something in the microwave. And you learn quickly how important the electricity is.
Well,
it was not a demand, but it made me think and respect and appreciate so much of those that are, say, in hospitals or that have a need at home that you got to have power. And I was glad that our street, I don't think we had any problem, but I think they did a great job of getting to those with the greatest need.
Did you, but you were keeping up with things,
Yeah, as much as I was a stockbroker, so we weren't really out of work.
Well,
Most of my clients were in Mississippi. I had a handful up in southern Tennessee and places like that, and around the country. I did have clients that had moved around, but 90% of my book were.
You couldn't service people on the day of a hurricane.
No, I mean, so basically you had to let folks know, I don't have any ability to do anything right now.
Yeah, really.
So you could watch things as much as possible, but it was a hole, a black hole of information, and technology just wasn't there. And
well, I didn't see. I guess I remember waves splashing on the causeway because I can see the causeway. I can see the causeway from my house, but I don't remember that it was bad. But apparently, it was a lot worse than I thought. A lot of, especially along Spillway Road, a lot of the boulders were dislodged and all that. That was pretty bad. But as far as what was going on the coast, I mean, we've seen it on television. Thank God for that. But seeing it in person. Now, do you remember when the first time was that you saw the Gulf Coast? Lance, do you remember that?
Well, I went to it physically because my mother was working on a catastrophe team there, and she started. I think they were in New Orleans first, and I did get to go down and witness what I saw there. She was living with the company in basically a motel where the whole bottom floor had been washed out, and then they were in the second floor of the hotel, and their job was to get out and write claims and cover people's losses as quickly as possible so they could get food and water and clothes and things as they had lost everything. And she moved around after that and went to Pensacola and other places. The one that really got me was the neighborhood in Pensacola that was right out on the point, a place where you could sit there and watch the Blue Angels practice and all this.
Yeah.
A serene, beautiful place. Mm-hmm. And then you pull out of these trees, these pine trees down there, into this neighborhood, and the first thing you see, it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off.
Exactly.
Everything was destroyed, other than one house here or one house there. And it was the most humbling experience of my life, I think, seeing the loss.
Well, yes.
People just standing around like, what is...
It was some time before I got to see it, but we went down the back way where you come down through, I can't remember where those towns were, but north of the pass, north of Pass Christian and north of Waveland. And for a long time, you see dead trees and dead-looking trees anyway. And you get down to below I-10, and it was nothing. It was like... where's the street? Where is everything? It reminded me of the first Planet of the Apes movie.
Yes.
Where Charlton Heston was walking along this beach. He didn't know where he was, and he sees the remnants or, the head of the Statue of Liberty. And then he knew that, it was like that.
Yes, it really was. It was spooky, humbling,
terrible,
and scary to an extent because so many services were interrupted. I mean, you think about police.
Everything.
I mean, it was
everything was wiped out.
Everything was wiped out. So I think, as I said in the earlier show, it was such a horrible and horrific event for Mississippi, but it also showed the backbone and the character and the heart and the soul that Mississippians have.
Well, nobody told this story on the air, I don't believe, but Bert went down the next day after with Governor Barber. And I don't know if they were on they were on helicopters, I guess. I don't know if they were on the same one, but all I know is Bert said that they were standing on the beach and they were both in tears, crying. These two guys, the governor and Bert Case, crying like, what happened to our Mississippi? Like, wow.
And, my mother grew up in the Camille time, as many of and so father, mother, but she was one of those that was on the coast a lot in the summers. My grandmother painted down there and did a lot of artwork and as an artist, and you had the artist community in Ocean Springs, and so they spent a lot of time down there, her and her brother and mother, while my grandfather had a car dealership in McGee. He would go back and forth. He'd work during the week and then drive down on Fridays and spend the weekends, with the family on the beach, so to speak, or on the Back Bay. But I remember growing up, it was just constantly hearing stories about Camille.
Oh, yeah.
We would go to the coast, and, we were still rebounding in the 70s and 80s because, as a child, we would go down there and Mom would say, well, this isn't here anymore and that isn't here. And
steps to nowhere.
Right,
Did they talk about that?
And it was, but then you had I don't know, I've seen pictures of Camille. But it was nothing like Katrina.
No. And Camille was a tightly wrapped.
It was
a tightly wrapped hurricane. It blew through Mississippi. It didn't destroy the width of it, but where it went was disgustingly horrible. But then it kept on going, and there were a lot of fatalities. Up Tennessee and Virginia, places like that. But this one,
it was so widespread,
very widespread, and
huge storm.
Huge. Yes, we all remember watching it.
And then the coast was not nearly as congested back in the Camille area. It was much more of a sleepy area. and you didn't have the casinos. Nothing was really built on the beaches. And so I think that, that maybe have saved the coast
Probably
a bit
did.
because if you saw the pictures of I can't remember, was it the Isle of Capri or which one of the casinos that was dislodged?
Oh, yeah.
Floated across
the road.
Yeah, and it was across the road. Seeing that picture really put it into perspective for me. Before I got down there, I knew what I was getting into going and looking, but that was like Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
That's when I went,
absolutely.
wow, this is bigger than I thought.
We're asking people for comments. Marshall says, a man named Marshall says he was on the coast, but he didn't go to detail. And somebody says they were without power for 5 days in Fox Bay, which is that's
right down the road from you.
Yeah, that's CEPA, Central Electric Power Association. They were flickering off, by the way, in the night. This past night, and I thought must have been a lot of rain.
It was
now.
I woke up at 4 a.m. and it was an old-fashioned gully washer coming down. I got to drive to work in this, and by the time I got out of the door, it wasn't as bad.
Well, you got a Mother Nature-free car wash. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes for our final segment here on Mary Wieden You. I'd like to hear from you about what you know and where you were on the day of Katrina. At 888-808-8637, and you can text us at 601-879-4395. You can watch us, supertalk.fm/Mary. Be right back.
Talk.
I know this song. I love that. Welcome back to Mary Wieden You. Love to have you along with us today. Just the last segment now, talking about Katrina 20 years ago. I can't believe it's 20 years. 20.
No, that's
like, wait a minute. Well,
my
what?
memory's foggy because of time. It's past. And, and then so much happened. I know that our experiences here were much different than those that were south of us. So I never would want to make my situation or anybody sound more grandiose than it was. But yeah, it was just a wild and crazy time where, a week later, or a couple weeks later, it was really, to me, it's almost what it took to put it all into perspective. It was so big, the damage, the destruction.
Nobody knew. I mean,
you kept seeing pictures of it was worse than you thought. It was worse than you thought, And the recovery, though, again, I got to say, I think Mississippi.
Pretty good recovery.
Something showed in Mississippi there, and we had great leadership. Haley Barber, the crew, Bert, all those that covered the story, and were there making sure people were taken care of and water, and just the story didn't die, which I'm so appreciative of because we needed help.
Well, yes, absolutely. And by the way, there's a guy whose name has just gone right out of my head. He was a reporter with Channel 16, and he's really good. A good. What's his name? Anyway, he has gone on to do. Then he disappeared, and I thought, oh well, okay, he's been picked up by some of the larger markets because I saw him then. I think I wasn't Hurricane Harvey after Katrina, maybe some year or two later. Anyway, saw him reporting from Texas, and I thought, well, that's really nice. Now he's with ABC Network, and he's been all over the place. I think he's back in the States now, but he's been like to the Middle East and everything. Dang, I can't think of his name. I hate that when I can't think of his name. But I thought that Channel 16 seemed to have hung with the story longer than Channel 3 did. Channel 3 was, a few days, and then they were off to doing other things, and they would do a Katrina once in a while, in my memory. But it seemed like Channel 16 stayed with it longer. Well,
Marshall and Terry makes a great point, and I wanted to mention this, and we did not have time, and it carries over into our conversation where he was the one that's on the coast. But he says a great thank you is owed to the Mississippi Ham and Amateur Radio Associations for standing up ham radio systems during events like Katrina. As a fire officer on the coast during Katrina, communication was strained, but those people helped get communication to other places, let families know where they were, safe, and all that good stuff. And he happened to be working for the fire department during that time, riding out the storm as his house washed away.
Oh, that's
so many
painful.
stories like that.
Yeah. Well, Bert did his last reporting was on the 10-year anniversary before he became ill and didn't come back home. But he was went down during that that reporting time 10 years ago with William Jeans and his wife. William Jeans. William Jeans and his wife were living in. They had a 2-story house, and they were up on the 2nd story, and it was shifting and rocking around. And they thought they could stay, but they couldn't. And they went back to look at it, and there wasn't much left, as I recall, of it. And I don't know where they went or anything like that. But yeah, they went down, and William, by the way, lives in Arkansas now.
He does. We need to get William back on again.
No, we can't.
Paul and William were such buddies, and It's just that he was always so much fun. I love talking to him. He has so much unique information.
Well, I think Paul got him through me because I was the one who debuted William on my show. You know, and I talked about cars. And now this latest thing he's gotten into those about getting old. Well, we don't want to hear about that. Talk about vehicles. We're talking about cars and stuff. Don't talk about getting old. And talk about this woman, Mary Barra is her name, I think, who's the head of General Motors. She's going to stick with the electric vehicle initiative or whatever. So, well, good luck. Maybe you won't have a job or maybe you won't have a company, but good luck with that.
Hey, and think about electric cars during Katrina or something like that. I mean,
be blowing up all over the place.
Yeah, that. And, I mean, just the water getting in there and then not being able to charge them or what? I mean, and we have another one here, and this is one of our listeners here from Brandon, Chris, spent 2 weeks deployed in Bay St. Louis for Katrina. The worst deployment in conditions we have ever had. 2 deployments in Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Colonel, U.S. Air Force.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, that's how bad it was. That's what I'm saying.
Because there was nothing there. There was nothing.
I mean, what I saw, and again, it was coming in firsthand after the fact, granted, was nothing like I've ever witnessed and hope I never have to see again. It would... I mean, you know, the floods they had over there in the hill country of Texas, those were limited to a small area. Horrific loss.
Oh, my God.
But multiply that times,
just
multiply that out as far as you can imagine, exponentially.
Well, I remember the people that we had on the show, they were the woman we had her on to specifically talk about her experience with Katrina. She was here with us to talk about helicopters and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember her name, but she was the woman she was fabulous. She and her then husband lived in Crystal Spring. It was what's the spring?
Crystal Springs or Ocean Springs?
Ocean Springs. They had a house in Ocean Springs, and they could see they watched the water come down to the first floor, and then they went upstairs, and the water started coming up, and it was starting to get into the flooring on the second floor. So it was time to get out of there. So she and her son and her husband decided, okay, we're going to have to swim. Mm-hmm. We have to swim out of here. And she's the one who went back, and she said, wait a minute. She's the one who went back, and she said this to put on her underwear, Victoria's Secret underwear, because if she's going to be a corpse, she want to be a good-looking corpse, So, but they talked about they swam and swam. They swam for 9 hours to go 1/4 of a mile to they thought if they get to their car, which is they have a boat hooked up to it, if they can get there on a hill, and if they could get there, then they would be good. Well, so they finally got there after 9 hours, and the car was about underwater, and you see the boat hanging still on the trailer, but 9 hours. And then that's about the time they were near a house, and these people were yelling, hey, we need some help. And they're like, well, we need help. So the people said, well, we have an outbuilding over there. You can go into that one. So they went over there, and that was full of water too, but it was bad. It was not as bad as it could have been. It was bad enough. Then the water finally went away. But
you got power lines.
9 hours of swimming
in sewage and power lines.
And for 1/4 of a mile.
Golly.
Yeah, 1/4 of a mile. I mean,
I'm not. I'm one of those that I'm not the most fearful of the dark and the water. I mean, I get out and hunt, in the middle of the night, basically in the water in waders. But you couldn't have paid me to not have I would have never been able to not have the heart palpitations and the jitters swimming through all that stuff.
Well,
I'd much rather be there with alligators than all that.
The gators, that would be the thing that scares me.
I mean, I'd much rather just hang out with them than I would the power lines, the sewage, the debris, and the things that people had to wade through just to get to high ground.
Yeah, and they swam. But swimming for 9, I don't know how you. I mean, I like to swim, and I know how to swim, and I know how to tread water and all that kind of stuff.
I could tread water for about 30 minutes.
9 hours, I don't know. So that's just one story. And then she said that, by the way, speaking of how Mississippians respond and how people did respond, because it wasn't just Mississippians.
No.
She was the IT person at the shipbuilding place, and they got her department got up and going pretty quickly, and people came from Texas and brought them to her. They brought them a trailer, and they equipped it with food and everything, because they had nothing. They didn't have anything except the clothes they have on and the underwear that she had on under that. But all the help that came, and they got the IT department going at the shipbuilding place pretty quickly. A couple days maybe at most. Got that going, like, man. But people from all over came to help.
I remember, that was one of the moments where generators really were starting to get purchased.
Yeah.
And you see a lot more homes these days with the backup generators, the Gentech and the Taylors. And But it was one of those moments where you go, okay, yeah, there's.
Do you have one?
No, I do not. So I mean, they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but they definitely, you see a lot more of them now, and that really started. I think it's
down
picked
here,
up
yeah.
a lot more lately. As things are more readily available, but yeah, as you went down south, you'd see a lot more of the backup generators and people that could tell you, yeah, these things work great. I had one during this, and this, and it makes a lot of sense if you're in an area like that where you have.
Bert always wanted to have one. I'm like, why do we want to waste our money on something that we would never use? You hope
you don't. Right?
When we were in Audubon Point, I think. The longest we went without power, we had to go away for Christmas, and we had to leave. Oh, that was the part that made me really nervous, was leaving a little drip in the kitchen. I was like, whoa.
I think I got a camp. I got to do that too. Yes.
So that's really scary, because it was that cold. And I think it was about a week. We came back and it was restored. Nothing horrible happened or anything like that to us. But I said I can't justify the expense of all of that for just a few days. A few days you can get along.
Well, and if you, like I said, if you're in that area where you're much more, Hattiesburg South.
Well, then you would absolutely.
It's
and I would
very
think
smart move.
If I ever, but I'm not going to do it. If I ever lived up north, but I'll never do that again. But unless there would be something extraordinary that would put me there. But I wouldn't mind having something in the wintertime when blizzards come along, because although.
Natural gas is great
in a blizzard, we got natural gas up there too. In a blizzard, in the cold weather, you have a chance. You can put more clothes on. You can wrap up in blankets and stuff like this. But in the heat, you can't do anything.
It was miserable. I mean, again, not dismissing what everyone else had to go through, but it was in the 90s here, and you have no circulation. Nope. I can only imagine. I mean, after a couple of days of it, you're probably immune and numb. And I imagine most of the folks down in the Gulf area were absolutely just numb. You were looking around, just numb.
They're so numb, from everything. I do remember that day that when we lost the power, it was so hot, and we had our first Jack Russell. She was the first Heidi Jack Russell, as opposed to the one I just lost, who was Heidi 3. But that Jack Russell, she was lying down on the kitchen floor, tile floor, and I thought, smart dog, I'm going to do the same thing, lie down on the floor, because it was nice and cold tile. Well, everybody, have a good weekend, and it's Labor Day weekend, so be careful out there when you're driving. Don't go nuts, because people tend to do that. Just take your time and get there. Be safe, be sober, be safe, and come back. And we'll be back here next Tuesday, which is going to be everybody's Monday. That'll be fun to watch, and I'll see you then. Thank you, Lance. Have a good one.